Voice of FinTech.
Welcome to Voice of FinTech, a podcast mapping out the Swiss and global fintech scene, connecting fintech enthusiasts with startups, incubators, accelerators, business angels and VCs, and incumbents interested in partnerships. Voice of FinTech will help you navigate the fintech ecosystem. Here you can listen to the startup founder stories, what investors and incumbents are looking for when dealing with startups, and find out more about resources provided by incubators and accelerators. My name is Rudy Falad and I'll be hosting this podcast. Welcome everyone. This is another edition of Voice of FinTech Live Speaker Series. I started this podcast in June 2019, so I tell people this is not a COVID boredom baby or anything like this. This is part of my education and networking in the fintech space. And in addition to doing podcast interviews, I wanted to do live events as well. One other reason is that it's very easy to go to live events and criticize this was not any good, and I could have done it better, and then actually doing it. So in September 2019, I had Dorian Sells as a first guest from the CEO of Squirrel, which is an AI-powered startup working actually in financial services. Coincidentally, also backed by Finch Capital that was on the podcast recently. And we kept on doing this maybe every 3 months until the pandemic hit. And then, it's been virtual panels. We also talked about crypto in September. And today we're going to talk about tokenization mostly and the blockchain opportunities in 2021. I think that we have an outstanding panel here, everybody with strong credentials in the space and something to say for others also to know about what's coming in this space. So let me introduce first Lily Fang, who is a finance professor at INSEAD. That's a business school I went to, and we will talk about the FinTech course as well, which I'm going to coach as well, which came out. We'll get to that. Amy Lorincz, everybody who's been in blockchain or crypto in the last couple of years in Switzerland and in Europe knows Amy, right? So we'll hear more from her what's cooking. And of course, Lothar Cerjak, he is a well-known Credit Suisse alumnus. I know him from Credit Suisse. He's been heading institutional clients business at Bitcoin Suisse. And then Anthony Lamy, who is the partner at Wecan Group in Geneva. Wecan Group is a blockchain ecosystem builder. We're going to find out what that means and his views about tokenization. Maybe let me start with Lily, because I mentioned already that, you've been teaching finance at INSEAD. You can say to people how long, it's up to you. But, maybe when I took the MBA, when I did an MBA, but I didn't take a course with you because you were in Singapore and I was in Fontainebleau. But now you have led the development of the new FinTech course, which is hopefully going to be well received. It's a first edition, right? And there you also talk about FinTech as a part of innovation within finance as a whole, right? So what does that mean today? And what do you see in the future for FinTech within finance? What do you think it's going to mean?
Thank you, Rudy. First of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I'm here actually to learn a lot from practitioners. I'm an academic. I've been at INSEAD for 18 years, so an old timer already. And I think that it's extremely important for us in academia to, stay current with events like this. And so thank you for including me in this. So talking about FinTech, everybody knows this is finance and technology, but there's I think it's very important to think about which comes first. Is it the finance that we're trying to, kind of disrupt, or is it the technology part of the finance? Because if you think traditional finance also already relies on huge amount of technology, like computing powers. 10 years ago, people started to build these high frequency trading and you want dead straight, kind of transmission lines and so forth. So technology has never been far from finance, and finance is never devoid of it, right? So I think it's a very interesting question of, are we really trying to disrupt the finance part of it? How intermediation gets done or getting rid of the intermediation, or is it the delivery channels that we're talking about, right? So it's the technology part of it. So I think that this is just a super exciting thing because, in 1994, Bill Gates famously one time said, I think at that time, he's already thinking about, getting into banking. He had this saying that said, we need we need banking, but we may one day no longer need banks. And this is Bill Gates in 1994. And I think that we're finally come to the point where, I think that we can debate, to what extent what he said has become true, to what extent technology companies can literally, replace financial institutions or financial institutions themselves increasingly becoming technology firms. And then, of course, within that, you also have just truly disruptive and new technology that come up, which is blockchain. And, this particular technology, I feel like it's the one of the few really true disruptive ideas, because it's a new way of data architecture. It's a new way of organizing consensus and agreements. And it's not just an app, right? It's a platform that allows so many applications. So I absolutely think that, these kind of areas of fintech and the excitement, you can feel it, it's palpable, and it's certainly going to be not a sort of a bubble, like, a few years and a fever, and then we kind of forget about it, right? It's going to be here to stay. It's going to have a long-term impact. We just have to, we're still in the process of finding, exactly how everything fit together and what's the right, opportunity in space. So let me,
You mentioned the blockchain and the promise that the technology could deliver, right? So maybe let's dig into it a little bit more before we speak to others as well. So what's your key message on blockchain? Are you a believer? Are you a hater? Or, the jury's still out? Or, which way are you leaning?
This is such a great question. I really think that the blockchain technology is very, very promising. As I said, it is one of the very few, if not only, truly disruptive ideas of how to do transactions, how to disintermediate, right? Because the whole thing is designed on the idea of we don't need a centrally trusted intermediary. And so it is a crowd-based, and it's a pure way of democracy. You can even go philosophical about this. And it's an entirely new idea. And it has, in addition to, of course, it gets a lot of press time because of, especially recently with the various cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. But I think that much beyond Bitcoin, there's just so much more broader applications, be it in identification, be it in tokenization, for example. And I happen to believe that tokenization is one of the most ready to deploy and as well as promising areas of application for this. So as a technology, I really think that it has a great, future, potential for the future. But I do think that there are some challenges because the design, there's some inherent tensions between, kind of open platforms, truly sort of open networks versus the efficiency, right? So your blockchain itself, the original design is truly the open blockchain, the public chain, but it has issues of efficiency and so forth. So, but I think that, the community, the technology industry is constantly thinking about different ways of doing this. And we are surely going to come to some kind of a good equilibrium where, it gets adopted in the right type of use cases and the technology itself keeps on evolving. So I'm totally a long-term bull, I think, on the blockchain technology. And I think that even if you look at companies like JP Morgan, I think maybe two or 3 years ago, the CEO of JP Morgan, had said that, Bitcoin is essentially sort of, a scam, right? A Ponzi scheme. But nowadays their internal kind of, chief technologist is saying, you got to be on this. If you're not, you're going to be dinosaurs and you're going to be just eaten out. So I think that they had a complete about face almost, although I think that there's a distinction between blockchain as a technology in general versus the currency, Bitcoin specifically. So we can talk about that, but I'm very bullish on blockchain.
Great. I think this is a nice moment to turn over to Lothar and, Bitcoin Suisse, right? So Bitcoin Suisse, a lot of people have seen it also on the trams, right? So sounded like, focus on Bitcoin and potentially retail investors, right? But I know that this is much wider than this, right? So what's your connection to blockchain or tokenization? And maybe also explain your role, I think, head of institutional clients, and what do you do at Bitcoin Suisse in relation to tokenization and blockchain?
Thank you, Rudy, for having me in the show. It's a pleasure to be here. Founded in 2013, Bitcoin Suisse is the crypto finance and technology pioneer in Switzerland. Bitcoin Suisse has helped to shape the crypto and blockchain ecosystem in Switzerland, has been a driving force in the development of so-called Crypto Valley and the crypto nation Switzerland. But yes, indeed, our company as a regulated Swiss financial intermediary, today we offer an entire suite of products and services that includes prime brokerage, trading, custody, lending, and staking. So for private and institutional clients, we have quite a wide range of crypto products in our shelf. But then again, I must say, we've seen in the last couple of weeks, months, exceptionally strong growth in client activity on obviously having the Bitcoin soaring to 60K. That is a huge development. And currently the company has over 200 employees based in Zug, where we have our headquarters, and we have a base in Liechtenstein and also in Copenhagen. So I think the business is thriving a lot. And what is my role? I'm heading an area in Bitcoin Suisse. We're calling it ISP. ISP stands for Institutional Services and Products. We're seen as a solution partner to offer to professional clients an interface, a gateway to reach the kind of services we provide as a company. And we have an entire range of crypto products and markets to offer. If I could, if you allow me to give a few examples to give that a bit more clarity. Well, among other things, we have recently co-launched with 21 shares, a company in Switzerland, a first ETP, exchange traded product. It's listed now on the Swiss Stock Exchange to be traded. And Bitcoin Suisse offers there our hyper-secure cold storage solution, important factor in the crypto world to have the safety of obviously storage. Then obviously we're in the past and still do. We have a lot of experience in ICOs, in token facilitations. We most recently, we did recently a successful fundraising up to $6 million was the size, and that's through a private sale that was for Swarm. And such kind of projects keep us really, extremely, extremely excited. And then maybe another field, one of the recent things we started this year, we actually kicked off an initiative called a corporate treasury initiative. No surprise in that environment. We engaged now with enterprises here in Switzerland. And to say so, many of them are not using crypto at all these days. So, and here comes the point, right? I really must admit, the sheer size and speed of innovation and information in the crypto financial industry, it requires us and me constantly to stream developments in the market and the community and everything which goes on. And for that, we also have a research department, really proud to say so. So we have a fantastic research team who, exactly educates us internally, but obviously also our clients and gives them all the insights to the crypto markets which are going on. So in a nutshell, that describes a little bit world of Bitcoin Suisse and myself.
Great to reconnect, Lothar. And obviously you mentioned cold storage. And so that's unrehearsed segue to talk to Emmy as well, which, I would say she's a well-known crypto blockchain evangelist or, promoter of the technology in Switzerland and in Europe. Emmy, you work at the Ledger. So can you explain what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And I think it has to do something with the cold storage, right?
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. And I'm blushing for being so kind and giving me this compliment. Basically, Ledger is a security company which has been around since 2014, and it's here to provide with security for the consumers and also institutions who have critical digital assets. And in 2017 and 2020, during the bull run, we pretty much wrote a success story because we managed to scale and we sold 2.5 million little Ledger Nanos up until today. And since 2019, we also have a B2B arm which is called the Ledger Enterprise Solutions. And I have the pleasure to be part of that team. So I don't have much to do with the nano devices. And we are providing state-of-the-art security for those institutions who have high amount of crypto assets and want to scale their operations while keeping their crypto secure. I really like that, Lothar, you said in a celebratory way that Bitcoin recently reached 60K. We are now bouncing back to 60. And I know that this conversation is about tokenization and blockchain, but we cannot go by without mentioning Bitcoin, because in my view, crypto and blockchain cannot really be separated from each other.
Obviously, I know that you would like this to proceed even faster, right? So what do you think that where the blockchain and crypto will be, not in terms of numbers, so don't tell us the Bitcoin price in 5 years' time, that's too hard, but where do you think we will be in 5 years? And maybe let's complicate it a little bit, because maybe that's a too obvious of a question versus where you would like to be, right? So do you think that we'll be behind? I guess so, versus, your wishes, but let us know, what do you think about 5 years vision for this space?
Well, it's a challenge, to say the least, to say where we're going to be in 5 years. But basically, let me bring in here a researcher and mention his name. His name is Willy Wu. And I really much enjoy learning about his predictions. And basically, in terms of Bitcoin adoption, he's saying that we are there today where we were with the internet in 1997. And within 5 years, or actually 4 years, so by 2025, we will reach 1 billion users in Bitcoin. And that's equivalent of the 2005 of the internet. So we are actually moving much faster with Bitcoin adoption than with the internet itself. And maybe also just to mention that for the first time in modern history, people are finally able to manage their assets independently of banking and financial institutions, and they basically give a homework to these banks, or this new invention gives homework to the banks to reinvent themselves and bring new and more value to their customers. And in 5 years, I think we are already seeing now a great shift, and we are seeing banks being part of the narrative.
I mean, I think, whatever it happens in 5, 10, 20 years, I mean, the potential scale of this technology, I think, and can take a massive form, and probably mostly still underestimated even by its most vocal advocates. And so from there, I think Bitcoin, and because you mentioned it, I want to come, is still the thing we have in the first use case of blockchain, which is the Bitcoin itself. And because you want to talk eventually about tokenization, I think on a blockchain point of view, Rudy, also, I mean, we already have first use cases too. And I would here go into the decentralized finance space, where I believe this is the first really making sense and business evolving, developing there, and in particular on public blockchains. So I think there is a lot of activities already going where we see fruitful situations becoming really lively and large.
Great to hear. So, before we lose Anthony, let's also ask him what he thinks. But let's introduce a little bit Wecan Group, right? So, Anthony, you are partner at Wecan Group in Geneva, and you are working on implementing blockchain solutions rather this than focusing on crypto and digital currency. So, let's explain a little bit about Wecan Group. What's your ambition? And then how do you go about providing solutions in this space using blockchain?
First of all, thanks, Rudy, for having me. Yeah, Wecan Group is a blockchain venture builder. So what we have been doing for the past 4 years now is to assess the use cases for blockchain. So obviously, everybody a few years ago was already talking about crypto, but very few people investigated further, or very few are actually building other application. I say it because we every day face new challenges because it's still extremely new. So finding people, or when you have an issue with the technology, not that many people can help you with the topic. And so what we've been doing is working on several verticals to assess what are potential use cases for blockchain. Obviously, we talked with finance, but we've also developed use cases in the we have a solution using blockchain for the mountain guides in Switzerland. But going back to finance, so we have developed and we have live right now 2 products. One is called Wecan Tokenize, which is an end-to-end tokenization platform. We are very strong believers in tokenization and the token economy. It's going to be a very fascinating year for this technology, because we see a lot of marketplaces are going to launch, which was kind of the missing piece of that whole ecosystem. So that's going to be extremely interesting. And another use case we have launched a few weeks ago is called Wecan Comply, which is a very good blockchain use case for banks to simplify their compliance work with their business partners, such as independent asset managers, trustees, brokers. As you probably know, like banks have to exchange a lot of information with these people day in, day out. And right now they're doing that in a mix of email, phone calls, still a lot of paper. And blockchain brings an extremely good technology to simplify those exchanges and create trusted digital ecosystem. So in this ecosystem, we managed to already have 10 banks with us for the launch. Very traditional banks jumping on board with us, trusting us and trusting the technology. So Lombardier, Pictet, Mirabeau, banks like that, Rail are on the network, and we're working with them to go further, leveraging this technology and seeing how we can best help simplify their business in all of these compliance exchanges. It might sound boring, but we like boring. I think it's critical to build, to use digital to solve all of these matters that are taking it a lot of time. A lot of people in finance will tell you that compliance and administrative work is their biggest burden. We're really happy to be able to tackle such an issue.
All right. Thank you so much, Anthony. But let's push you a little bit. What if the blockchain is not the right solution? What do you do then? Right.
I'm also personally a big believer, having worked in the tech industry for more than 10 years. And I see that I've lived from inside this trend of our lives becoming more and more digital. And if you've not seen it, now this pandemic situation makes it extremely obvious for everyone that everything is becoming digital, and it's becoming a super big part of your life. And bringing trust in this digital world is the next big thing. There is no other thing, and blockchain technology that's exactly what it does. There isn't anything like this at this moment, competing at that kind of level where you see tons of projects emerging from all over the world, leveraging that technology. I think, of course, what's happening in crypto is extremely interesting. If you think if you see the amounts we're talking about now, there is a lot of appetite for hackers. We see less and less hacks, and actually, you see that it's a rock solid technology. So I strongly believe that it is the right solution, and it's going to shape our digital lives for the next 10 to 20 years.
Switzerland now lets tokenized securities trade on a blockchain with the same legal standing as traditional assets. The new law went into effect recently, and Swiss lawmakers decided to adapt the current legislation for specific features of DLT rather than to create the new law. What do you think it means for the DLT and blockchain prospects in Switzerland this year?
I think that this guarantees that the legal guarantee, essentially, we know that there is this Schuprinter has this institutional view of development, right? You need to have the regulatory and financial institutions behind it for the development to occur. So I think that this is going to be one of those cases. I think that I can easily foresee that this will trigger a lot of activities in terms of issuances, origination of tokenization, security tokens and security tokens, and as well as the secondary trading and liquidity, which is what makes this market thriving. And you mentioned the comparison to the financial crisis, and that was, of course, securitization almost became a dirty word after the crisis. But with every innovation, people forget when something goes badly, the original thesis of the innovation is there. It created a huge amount of value for society. Now, when something go wrong, when incentives went wrong and went to some extreme, you'll have bubbles and crashes, and these things happen in financial world. So, but I do think that, if you think about what securitization did, which is to broaden the access to many investors in terms of what they can invest in, and broaden the access to capital for companies and for entrepreneurs to raise capital. And this is going to be the next wave of that, right? And so in my mind, in my rather I try to distill things to just its basic pieces. Tokenization is just the second securitization 2.0, or it's sort of enhanced and much more advanced way of doing that. And you will be able to create this marketplace where you have a matching between, investors and assets and entrepreneurs, and that's the right direction to go. So I think that this legislation, as Lothar explained very well, is setting Switzerland to be becoming the center of this, and it's very exciting.
All right, that's cool. And I would ask Emmy, if you look at it from a Bitcoin perspective, do you think that these sort of things are potentially fueling the Bitcoin more, or Bitcoin has its own life anyway? What do you think that means for related areas, which is, crypto digital currencies?
Yeah, so basically what we have seen at Ledger Vault or Ledger Enterprise Solutions is that most of the institutions are wanting to offer Bitcoin and Ethereum to their clients, not only because there is a demand from their customer base, but also because they want to get their infrastructure ready for when tokenization kicks off. And I'm positive that Lothar is sharing this view as well. I don't think that Bitcoin how Bitcoin evolves must be directly linked to it. I definitely see a future where Bitcoin is going to thrive even more so, and it's going to be widely accepted. It's going to be billions of people on the globe who are using Bitcoin, not only just because it's there is no intermediary, but also because it's also a mindset and a shift in culture as well. And what is worth to add here, maybe that what is not going to be tokenized? I think that now with art and music and Kings of Leon, for instance, and so many like the internet is basically being now owned through owning an NFT. So this is so exciting, and it opens up a whole new way of adoption. And I think it's just worthwhile to be part of this and see how it evolves.
All right. And, Anthony, you talk about creating blockchain solutions, the ecosystem, etc. Can you think of any examples?
First of all, I'm going to say we have a tokenization platform. So we strongly believe in that it is going to take off. That hasn't taken off yet. One of the missing piece in Europe, outside the US, is the lack of a marketplace where people can have a real secondary market where there is liquidity and you can start exchanging those tokens cross-border seamlessly. This is still missing. Once that is put in place properly, it is very likely going to take off. So yeah, we've seen a lot of projects. We've done projects on tokenizing real estate. It's kind of a very obvious use case, a very sure one, because people know the underlying assets really well. Very easy to explain. And now it's a bit frustrating that this secondary market and these marketplaces aren't there yet to increase attractivity and have this tokenization promise fully delivered.
Right. So what you're saying is we are somewhere where we can tokenize things, but if you want to trade it, then that's a little bit more difficult, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can issue tokens, you can animate your primary market. But then when it comes to secondary market, it's becoming much more tricky these days. And then next to that, there was also some challenges with the custody. Sure, Emmy is on top of this. People needed to get ready to be able to store those tokens. And thank God we're seeing more and more banks getting ready for that next phase of being able to custody tokens or digital assets for their clients. So that's going to be also a good signal.
All right. So you're saying I should be more careful with my crypto Lambo or something like this because I might be stuck with it, right?
No. It's coming. It should be like it's very likely that the second part of 2021 we'll start seeing those marketplaces being launched, at least in Switzerland, and so that's going to be so you will not be stuck with this with your token. Don't worry.
Okay. So coming back to Lothar, I mean, you already mentioned a lot of examples on what you do for institutional clients and things like this. But maybe if you have a few more on tokenization, the things that you've been working on or potentially can already mention that they are in the pipeline, where you think that you could be involved as well, whether in whichever capacity, right? Of course, Bitcoin Suisse maybe has a particular angle, right?
Happy to do so. I mean, from past experience, we have done our own Swiss crypto Fang, which is a stable coin that has been a tokenized asset at that time, where we obviously have self-issued that. Then we help to provide vault services for wrapped Bitcoin on Tesla's blockchain. So those are kind of early cases which we got to established. But I must also say, I mean, in terms of tokenization, we take it probably as Bitcoin Suisse a bit slower in that space than others. We still, I mean, of course, we keep all options open. But as I said once before, I mean, we see probably in the space of decentralized finance and in those public blockchains, a lot of steam coming. We hope, and the way we see, and we compare it a little bit to the internet in the early days, right? When you see an email is better than paperwork, right? Than a paper mail. And the way how we see now decentralized finance, it just offers premier solutions on an instant settlement blockchain, which is probably getting in that hype we are in currently to solutions, which then finally moves traditional finance. And here we talk about trading, settlement, interest rate stuff. I mean, all these kind of classic things onto the blockchain. So, I mean, comparing to tokenization with, let's say, the decentralized field, we feel right now we have larger opportunities currently in that area. However, I mean, with the Swiss law, as we pointed out, I mean, there's lots in the pipeline, and we see movers coming in. Interest is high, but it probably needs time. Still early days. I mean, we should remind ourselves that we are still young in a field, and we're talking here really working on a operation which is just going on and getting up right now.
All right. And, we talked about what, let's say, Emmy thinks it's going to happen in 5 years. Lily talked about where we are today, what are the pros and cons, or whether the jury's still out and what's the outlook long term. And, Anthony's solutions on blockchain and tokenization as well. But let's maybe not put the timestamp on it. But if you think end state, whatever you think it is, where it's going to be mature technology, what do you think is going to happen? Where do you think that we will land? In other words, there are some books. I mean, I'm going to mention, Mr. Tapscott and Blockchain Revolution, right, which talks about everything in the world will be sorted by blockchain. There are other people who are on the other extreme. So where are you, whether that's in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, what do you think where we're going to land with all this? And maybe I'll start with Lily as a more macro view.
Yeah, I think, we talked a lot already. I think I agree with what Emmy said, in a way, if you think about it in the future, what is not going to be tokenized. I think I also agree that the adoption of cryptocurrencies will broaden, among the, in the general population. Just because, as I said in the very beginning, and I think Emmy and also, emphasized that, this is a new way for people to manage their own financial affairs, right? In the sense that you don't have this intermediary, you can even do things away, from the central bank and everything else. So I think that there's certainly going to be a market for that. So I think in general, this is going to be very bullish. I have a bullish long-term view on that. Some of the issue though is that within the boundaries of Switzerland, you can have very smooth regulations. You can have a closed loop where everything works out very well. But if you actually try to extend the footprint, then you needed regulatory smoothness and coordination among different countries. And I think that that's a little bit of a tricky thing, right? And also the interface between blockchains, even public chains like Bitcoin versus the real world, because I don't think in the next 20 years still even though there's going to be perhaps large adoption of Bitcoin cryptocurrencies, the fiat currencies are still not going to go away. Central banks are still not going to go away in every single country. So it's the friction between going from the kind of closed loop of the cryptocurrency world to the outside. I think the volatility will still be here in the sense that just like the fiat currency, there's no fundamental value. It is in what people believe what it's worth. And so with fiat currency, you do have the central bank, essentially the tax authority, to have some kind of backing to this value. So I think that the challenge will come from the boundaries in the sense that across different countries, regulations are not harmonized, and also between the crypto world and the real world, the sort of moving in between. And the movement in between, you still need a centralized organization like companies, right? In the end, we're still back in this world where you need intermediaries and centralized intermediaries, and hacking risks is always happening to these entities rather than the Bitcoin itself. The blockchain itself cannot be hacked. So I think that these are the things I kind of think about as challenges. But I don't think that this is kind of going to stop the growth of this industry. It's just that, we haven't really figured out everything yet.
Okay, well, I think that begs for Emmy's response as well, right?
Yeah, maybe if you let me, I just want to say complimented to Lothar and to the entire Bitcoin Suisse team that you guys always provide exposure to your clients to the latest innovation and the latest products in the space, be it DeFi, be it staking. So I think that's very remarkable, and it's second to none what we see in Switzerland. So major kudos there, definitely. And then on your earlier question, Rudy, where you were asking about examples, I did not say, but would love to say that that the vault was selected by SocGen to provide CBDC security solutions. So we are proud to be working together with the traditional bank on this. And looking into the future, definitely we need more standardization in regulation, because if we have this arbitrage among countries, this regulatory arbitrage, then, it's not a big stake or volume. So we just need to get to a standardized solution when it comes to regulation. And like when you were asking what is in for Ledger, we think that a lot of excuse my voice, a lot of traditional custodians are going to move into the digital asset space, and they will need an infrastructure to secure those critical digital assets. And we are here to serve these clients on the consumer and also on the institutional arm.
All right. And coming back to Lothar, actually, sorry, Anthony, will come to you as well. What is your big picture, very, very long-term view? And, I would ideally ask you, what do you think is going to be the Bitcoin price by December, and then in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? But it's not about recommending putting out an investment advice today. But what's your view on the adaptability and the use case, whatever the end state is going to be?
Let me start with the short term, maybe to answer it. I almost I can use a quote. Su Chu from 3 Arrow Capital recently said, the hype is usually right, but early. So we have a hype in certain conditions of market and development. So, but then again, right, it will come to the point, in my point of view, that we're still early. In a digital age, which we all believe we are, right? Isn't it to have Bitcoin as the better store of wealth than gold? And all these transitions into not only thinking, in acting then also these beliefs and incrementing them in whatever you take for decisions, I would say is still a way to go, but starting right now and in the middle of it. But the long-term outlook, it's clear. Prices have potential to go up. In my personal view, it's still early days. We talk here in a 5-10 year horizon, and then you realize how fast it can go. And I have no crystal ball for looking into the price charts, but there are 21 million Bitcoins and not so many left. to mint. And so at that point, it's a scarce resource which is out in the market. But much more important is obviously the industry and the entire technological stake which is being built with the smartest brains we can think in the industry. And Bitcoin Suisse will help to adapt and to make our clients part of this journey. So yeah, I'm very optimistic about all these things. And thanks for the compliments, Amy. Try our best to be to our clients' needs.
Brilliant. And Anthony from Wecan Group, from, let's say, blockchain perspective or digital assets, what's your long-term vision, again, wherever the long-term or end state is? And also, what are your ambitions? You started in Switzerland, in Geneva. You have clients from the banking sector that are international as well. What are your plans there? How do you see it panning out for you?
So maybe I'll start with that. Our ambition is definitely international. So we try to prove that our solutions are working extremely well in Switzerland and making sure that the banking industry recognize what we are doing. And then actually very, very soon, we're going to expand in like usual suspect places where we need to operate, like Singapore. We already have a lot of contact in Singapore, Luxembourg, in London, you name it. Back to the long-term view, we have a perspective that yes, fintech and like smaller companies or challengers or new banks like or newcomers like Bitcoin Suisse are going to shake the market. But at the end of the day, if we all want this to properly scale, you will need the classical finance industry to jump on board and help more traditional people to embrace these new technologies. Also simplifying the access. Right now, it is still a little bit complicated. You need to be a bit educated to understand it all. We believe that very soon you will be able to manage those digital assets the same way you manage your assets in your portfolio with your classical bank. So that's probably horizon 5 years. I hope so, at least for the first movers. So and we want to position ourselves as a partner for the banking industry. So rather than going there and saying we're going to challenge you, we actually work with them and in that journey.
Understood. So on that note, I would ask everyone maybe to share with people that are interested in this topic how to get in touch potentially. What's the best way to find out about what you do? Whether that's Lily at INSEAD in terms of research or teaching, or Amy at Ledger in terms of security, Lothar, at Bitcoin Suisse, obviously wide range of activities, and Anthony as well in the blockchain space as well. So maybe Lily, one final statement, and what's the best way to reach out?
Just through you. And also find me just from INSEAD website. You can find me. And I really so much enjoyed hearing from the experts, and look forward to meeting you again.
Lothar inspired me with his quote. So I had to think of another quote, which is from the economist Gibson. And he says that the future is here, but it's not evenly distributed. And I think this is so exciting that we can witness how the distribution of the future is going to happen in front of our eyes. And I'm happy to give anyone who's interested a demo of the Ledger Vault. And I'm best to be reached either on Twitter or on LinkedIn.
Cool. And Lothar, final words?
Easy. I'm reachable on the webpage of Bitcoin Suisse, Lothar Cerjak at bitcoinsuisse.com, or LinkedIn. So reach out to me anytime you like.
Thank you.
To find us, thank you, Rudy. You can go on LinkedIn, Wecan Group, or weekengroup.ch. Go find what we are doing. And yeah, as I said, we're more than happy to help people in the finance industry navigate these new times and partner with them. So if you have any question, don't hesitate to reach out.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, Lily, Amy, and Lothar, and Anthony for joining, and obviously everybody listening.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice
Thank you.
evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. Thank you for listening to Voice of FinTech podcast. If you haven't already, check out also voiceoffintech.com, where you will find all the episodes and additional resources related to the podcast. You can also subscribe to Voice of FinTech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or any other podcast app that you like. If you have any suggestions on the topics or guests, or how to make this podcast better for you, please email us at info@voiceoffintech.com. Happy to hear from you. Thank you.